Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, Episode 5. My name's Kim Newlove. I'm the host. You can find the show notes for this episode on perrysburgpodcast.com. That's perrysburgpodcast.com. This is an informational podcast for prospective, new, and current Perrysburg, Ohio residents. Today, we're talking about who lives in Perrysburg. And just so you know where I got my data, I went to the United States Census Bureau Quick Facts website. You can find that at census.gov/quick facts. That's census.gov/quick facts. There's a link to that in the show notes. In case you don't know this, I am a pharmacist by training. I love data and facts and evidence-based everything. Therefore, please know that my search criteria was the zip code 43551. Why is that important? Well, if you're new or a current Perrysburg resident, you know that there are people who have our zip code, which is 43551, yet they don't engage with our community and they don't send their children to our schools. For example, I have cousins in the 43551, that's the Perrysburg zip code, out in eastern Perrysburg, yet they send their children to Eastwood schools. Not by open enrollment, but because that's their actual school district. They happen to have a Perrysburg address and zip code, but they don't engage our schools and our community. For better or for worse, they are in our census data. So take this data with a grain of salt, and please know that this is for the Perrysburg zip code, not necessarily people who engage our community and go to our schools. Also, note that this data is from April 1st of 2020, and I've got a little bit from April 1st of 2010, so this is not exactly data from 2023. The census is done every 10 years in the United States. There are estimates on the website, census.gov/quick facts. However, I'm using the data from April 1st, 2020. Let's dive in. First of all, the population as of April 1st of 2010 was 20,623 people. The population as of April 1st of 2020 is 25,041. That's an increase of 4,418 people. There is an estimate from July of 2022, so as I published this in August of 2023, this data is already 1 year old, but the estimate is 25,161. Roughly 50% of Perrysburgers are female and 50% are male. 6.2% are under the age of 5, 26.7% are under the age of 18. Now that's compared to the national average of 21.7. We have 26.7. So we have more than the national average here. 14.9% of us are ages 65 and older. The national average is 17.3. We have fewer people ages 65 and older here. And that leaves, if you do the math, 52.2% of individuals living in Perrysburg are between the ages of 18 and 65. I had to do the math on that because they do not just subtract from 100. Now, if you trust this data and you believe this data is correct, then 52.2% of us are between the ages of 18 and 65. 89.8% of us are white alone. That's compared with the national average of 75.5%. We have more white people in this town than average. 1.7% are Black or African American alone. That's compared with the national average of 13.6%. 0.4% of us are American Indian and or Alaskan Natives alone. That's compared with the national average of 1.3%. 3.7% are Asian alone. That's compared with the national average of 6.3%. 0.1% are Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander alone, compared with the national average of 0.3%. 3.8% of Perrysburgers are 2 or more races combined. That's more than the national average of 3.0%. 4.2% of Perrysburgers are Hispanic or Latino. That's compared with the national average of 19.1%. The very last one on my list here is 87.4% of Perrysburgers are white alone, not Hispanic or Latino. That's compared with the national average, which is 58.9%. One of the things that I used to do in pharmacy school was I would add up all of the different percents to see if they added up to 100% because I tend not to trust things that don't add up to 100%. I don't know about you. So, anyways, I added up all of the races alone and it added up to not 100%, but it was within 3% error, which I find acceptable, especially for a government statistic. Therefore, that's the data. That's who lives in Perrysburg. Everybody loves a good bonus, right? So here's some bonus data for you. There are 1,052 veterans living in Perrysburg. 5.5% of Perrysburg residents are foreign born. I'm going to skip a few categories and go down to education. 97.9% of Perrysburg residents have at least a high school diploma. That's compared with a national average of 88.9%. 57.2% have a bachelor's degree or higher by the age of 25. That beats the national average, which is 33.7%. 6.4% of Perrysburg residents under the age of 65 years old have a disability. That is much lower than the national average of 8.7%. The median household income of Perrysburg residents in 2021 dollars is $92,834. The per capita income in the last 12 months in 2021 dollars is $52,829. We have 4.6% of Perrysburg residents in poverty. The national average is 11.6%. We are well below the national average. In summary, the majority of Perrysburg residents are ages 18 to 65, white, educated, U.S. natives without disabilities who earn more than $52,000 per year each. Again, you can find the data shared today on census.gov/quick facts. That's census.gov/quick facts. Just put in 43551 as your search criteria. You should get the same numbers that I shared today. Thank you for joining me for episode 5 of the Perrysburg podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing about who lives in Perrysburg. Join me next week where we'll be talking about communications in Perrysburg. What kind of a newspaper do we have here? Which social media channels should you be checking out? We'll be talking about all that next week. To find the show notes for this episode, go to perrysburgpodcast.com. And for all future episodes, please subscribe to or follow the Perrysburg Podcast on your favorite podcast player so that you get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks again for joining me today. I'll talk to you next week.